It was a tough week for my beautiful Detroit Lion boys, a super struggling first game, but thankfully this week holds much more than that because this is our Nintendo Direct week, and NashWeedle thinks he spoiled one of my 777 games. We got to touch on that, as well as who specifically Nintendo is withholding Switch 2 dev kits from. I think you'll find it interesting, and I want to know if you agree with how they're deciding who gets them. What's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce, Nintendo Direct this Friday. Bada boom, bada bing. We're super pumped for that one. Gonna be a big general show. I've still seen some people questioning, like, is it a Metroid Direct? Is it a Mario Direct? It's a general Direct. There's gonna be first party, third party, and a whole lot more. I guess we'll start there because I know people have been very interested about this 777 thing because it kind of blew up over the weekend, where I tweeted that Nintendo kind of hit the jackpot with triple sevens for the next Direct. And everybody's been making their guesses as to what those sevens are, and I believe, as of this recording, still, nobody has gotten the exact correct combo of three right. Like, the correct games have been mentioned, but nobody has the perfect trio. And so the update for that today is, I'm curious if anyone is going to guess it. We've had a lot of crazy theories out there, a lot of big games. I've shut down a few of them, like no, Soul Calibur 7 is not going to be at this Nintendo Direct, nor probably is in existence. I've seen some people say Ace Attorney 7. I shut that one down. But NashWeedle is coming through on his latest podcast with Attack the Backlog, and he thinks he has one of the games. NashWeedle has two interesting tweets that we need to look at here, and I'm going to give you my take on both of them. Well, I didn't expect 7 in a Nintendo Direct. Could it be possible? I'm recording the second episode of my podcast with exclusive information about a new game coming to Switch 2 and other platforms. I'm leaving you the link to the first episode in case you missed it. So I'm not sure exactly what the new game that he's talking about here is, but in his podcast, he says that Resident Evil 7 is coming to Switch 2. Now, Resident Evil 7 was on Switch 1, but as a crappy cloud version. Cloud versions of basically all the games were pretty poop and not something that anybody really should be dipping their toes into unless you wanted a very substandard experience. Now, I don't know if NashWeedle is just piggybacking off of my 777 thing or if he has information of his own, but the way that he confidently stated that Resident Evil 7 is going to be at this Nintendo Direct in his podcast, in his video, makes it seem like he also has a source. And I'd say that I think NashWeedle is doing a pretty good job. A lot of people want to dismiss NashWeedle and say that he's been very 50-50, and in the past, yes, he has. But since the Switch 2 generation began, he's been very, very, very good. Maybe not perfect, but very, very, very good. And so, hey, if he's saying that he's confident in this, then I'm confident in him and what he's saying. I'm confident in his prediction for the Nintendo Direct, or his leak, or his rumor, whatever you want to say, about Resident Evil 7. Now, there's another tweet he made that I think is very interesting, where he says, they're all going to be there. Nobody wants to miss it. Now, this is interesting because it comes shortly after his live podcast, okay, and before another tweet about Capcom and horror. And he says, again, they're all going to be there. Nobody wants to miss it. Now, this could be about a number of things. They're all going to be there. All the third parties, all the first parties, they're all going to be there. A collection of Mario games, they're all going to be there. Maybe it's in relation to the game that he's confident is going to be at the Nintendo Direct. If you trace back things that I've said, I said something about Gamescom, and some people thought it didn't come true. Maybe it will. There is some rumor out there right now, I believe it's from Dusk Golem, that Resident Evil 9, Resident Evil Requiem, is going to be on Switch 2 eventually. And then you have NashWeedle saying they're all going to be there, nobody wants to miss it. And I do wonder if he's talking about Resident Evil, because we know that there's 7 according to him, and then there's plenty of other games as well. In fact, there's been many modern Resident Evils that have not either made it to Switch or were cloud versions on Switch. I'm talking about Resident Evil Remake 2, Resident Evil Remake 3, Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8. Could that be what NashWeedle is talking about? It could be what NashWeedle is talking about. The other thing that I'm thinking of, like I said, is more of like a Mario type thing. We've had this idea that Mario's 40th anniversary Direct would be split up into a separate showing. So Nintendo would have this general Direct where they emphasize Metroid Prime 4, third parties, maybe some more Hyrule Warriors, a little bit of Kirby Air Riders, and then have a separate dedicated Mario 40th segment. But maybe Nintendo is opting to change up their strategy a little bit. Previously, Nintendo was very gung-ho about giving you something far off in the future. That did bite them, I think, more times maybe than not, or about 50-50, where things were pushed, right? Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, they showed, I think, too early, because that game got delayed and pushed and was released much later. Metroid Prime 4, we know, is the crown jewel example of showing and teasing something way too early. Now, there were plenty of fine examples, things like Animal Crossing and Super Smash Bros. That did come out on schedule, but the Switch 2 is another one where it's like, that thing was supposedly supposed to be out earlier, and developers needed it to be out later. So maybe Nintendo is going to go with a more short-term window into what they have for Switch 2, in which case Mario 40th would make up a big chunk of what they're ready and willing to show. And I do wonder if this Direct is going to kind of be that sort of combo effect where we do have, hey, a general Direct that does give us updates on the already existing and announced titles, but then because Mario's 40th anniversary is the day after, maybe they are just going to give us the Mario stuff then. I surely know they're not going to give us the Mario Direct on Saturday the 13th, the actual anniversary. Could they give us something in a new presentation a week later? Maybe. But if you recall back in September for the 35th anniversary, they actually did the Mario presentation first, and then they did the General Direct later in the month. Well, in this case, we know that the General Direct is right around the corner. They've got about 2 days to get a Mario Direct out there, and I sure don't think it's going to happen. 2 of those in the same week seems almost impossible. And so I'm thinking maybe this is going to be more of a combo type presentation, in which case, hey, I'm super down for that. But let me know what you think about NashWeedle's comments. They're all going to be there. What is he referencing? And do you believe that he is spot on? I think he's pretty accurate lately that he's guessed one of the 7s, or he knows about one of the 7s, that he got one of the 7s, and you can cross that one off, despite nobody still getting the correct trio, the correct combo yet. Now, I definitely want to talk about this Switch 2 dev kit issue, which has been kind of like a grumbling thing throughout the last few months, but this one has some actual quotes to it. So when we hear things like, oh, devs are complaining that the Switch 2 dev kits aren't really being sent out, we don't have anything attributable. This is much more concrete because Insider Gaming was talking to the CEO of Strikers, Eugene Nashalov, who says that their game cannot be on Switch 2 because they're not sending out dev kits to free-to-play developers. He says the Switch 2 version is not yet in development. Their soccer title is called UFL. It's a free-to-play soccer game, but it will be, he says. As of right now, Nintendo is not very much actively giving development kits to free-to-play developers. That's a global trend, and we're a part of that. Once we have our hands on the new device and we start working with it, then most likely, yes, we'll put the game out on Switch 2. Now, this is the most specific we've got in terms of how they are gatekeeping the dev kits. And this would be not really wanting to give it out to free-to-play publishers/developers. Now, there's obviously some caveats there because Fortnite is running great on Switch 2. Apex Legends is on Switch 2. So the cream of the crop is complete with their dev kits, clearly. But other developers might actually be getting turned away. Now, how do you feel about this? Because on one hand, free-to-play was something that Nintendo used and leveraged on the Switch to really bolster their arsenal of especially multiplayer titles, to build out their Switch Online service, and to fill in gaps where Nintendo previously had not dabbled as much, right? You wouldn't have thought that, like, the Switch was a great Fortnite or Apex machine, but it definitely had those games, and it had plenty of others. Maybe Nintendo, though, feels like giving too many dev kits out to this free-to-play community beyond the top-tier titles contributes to a look of less quality. I do wonder, and my best guess would be, Nintendo thinks early on in the Switch 2, they do not want the system plastered with free-to-play games to where, hey, we've got like 3 first-party games and we've got 30 free-to-play games. I think for them, and especially for their Eastern headquarters, they'd feel like maybe that gives off an air that this system is less than, that this system is not of supreme quality. The other side of that coin is that we know that only a couple of games take up a majority of the gaming dollars and time. Therefore, is it even worth sending dev kits out to these free-to-plays rather than prioritizing other companies and other developers? I think Nintendo really does have sort of a plan here of what they want to hit with their Switch 2 and with their Switch 2 early. And it's clear that they're prioritizing third-party games that are impressive on Switch 2, right? Elden Ring is something that they're targeting and have been revealed on Switch 2. We've got Final Fantasy VII Remake coming to Switch 2. Star Wars Outlaws is a great port on Switch 2. Chronos New Dawn is a brand new title day and date on Switch 2. Borderlands 4 is going to be a big comeback for the franchise, and that's coming to Switch 2. It seems like Nintendo's idea was to have big, recognizable franchises and big, recognizable games and cover the gamut of franchises and genres early on in the Switch 2 life cycle. Like, Chronos is not a well-known IP, but Bloober Team is, and horror is something that's often skipped on Nintendo's platforms. So maybe they just want to have a nice breadth, and they don't feel like the free-to-play developers or publishers are going to contribute much to that. They want to focus on quality titles, and they want to make their early offerings seem like they're very strong. Honestly, I can't fault Nintendo for that. Now, I don't want them to be withholding dev kits forever. I think at some point it should just be free, like, hey, free reign. Like, everyone who wants to get one can get one. We can make games, you know, we can get as much out there as we need. But early on, if they do need to prioritize, if they're choosing to be picky, I'm fine with them leaving out some of these free-to-play developers. Now, that's not the full picture that we've heard previously, which is that Nintendo has been withholding dev kits from many developers, not just free-to-play games. But like I mentioned, we don't have a ton of concrete info on that. We've got some people saying that's not really true, a good chunk of people saying it is very true. This is all we have to go on that's like a quote, a direct quote saying free-to-play developers globally are not getting access. And honestly, I don't mind it too much. Long term, do I think they should allow those? Sure. But in terms of what titles should be emphasized and focused right now, and I fully understand from a marketing standpoint, Nintendo wants to emphasize quality and control what's on their market, as we know the eShop has been inundated with all sorts of crappy titles. Although, I will say that if Nintendo is going to go to these lengths to prevent these free-to-play games, maybe they should go to better lengths to prevent some of the eShop slop that we see as well. Like, if you're going to have this policy, apply it across the board, don't just do it to the free-to-play devs, because that does seem a little biased, and you're letting a lot through the cracks that is really souring the overall quality level of the eShop. But let me know what you think. Free-to-play, any free-to-play game that's not on Switch 2 right now that you wish was, that you're going to be missing, or do you think this is the right call? If you're going to block anybody out of early dev kits, free-to-play games not named Fortnite, Apex, and a few others probably are the ones that should be blocked. Let me know your take in the comments down below. We're approaching the Direct. It's getting very close now, less than, 96 hours away. Super pumped for that, and I will see all y'all there. In the meantime, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. Love you lots. SwitchForce out.